Hello and welcome to episode 102 of Driver's Food Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone. Well, the holiday season is officially over. I turned 42 on Tuesday. With the wintertime fun out of the way, we should get back to business. I'm going to cover a lot of smaller news stories next week, but there were three stories I felt really needed to be covered this week. And the first and most obvious news story is the new NASCAR Cup Series broadcasting deal. Now, I would have covered this when it happened, but I was too burned out working in a grocery store in the lead up to Thanksgiving, which is a hell. Actually, I would wish it on my worst enemy because they deserve a lot worse than what I could offer them. But to explain the terms of this new deal, I've linked an article from JSKI in the description, and here's the meat and potatoes of the deal that starts in 2025. Fox Sports and NBC Sports will return. Each will carry 14 events. And the Fox Sports portion of the Cup schedule, which kicks off with the Busch Light Clash, will include races on both Fox and FS1. Fox Sports coverage will also include live events for the entire NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series season. In my opinion, this is the best thing to happen in this deal, provided they get Jamie Little out of the booth. I'm sorry, she's the best pit reporter in the game today, but she sucks in the booth. Now, NBC's coverage of the Cup Series will encompass the final 14 events of the season, including the playoffs and championship race, and these races will air on NBC and USA. Now, I don't think I have to say this, but both partnerships will feature a mix of broadcast and cable events, with 5 Cup events airing on Fox and 4 on NBC annually. The remaining events will air on FS1 and USA respectively. Now, here's where things start to take a turn. In addition, 2 new partners, Prime Video and TNT Sports, evenly split a series of 10 mid-series races. Both have also included exclusive rights to practice and qualifying sessions for the entire Cup Series schedule through 2031. Prime Video will stream practice and qualifying live for the first half of the season through the last race of their mid-season series, at which point TNT Sports will also host the 5 mid-series races and practice and qualifying for the remainder of the season. TNT will broadcast on TNT and streaming on the Bleacher Report Sports add-on on Max. And there will also be practice and qualifying on True TV and the aforementioned Bleacher Report app. Well, unfortunately, they did exactly what I thought they were going to do, which is precisely what I said and I thought they shouldn't do. Now, granted, TNT is a sports powerhouse, but a lot of fans aren't exactly fond of their classic sell as many advertisements as humanly possible style of broadcasting, and a lot of people are not defending this deal well. But they're broadcasting on traditional television, so at least it's defendable. Prime Video, however, with this deal, NASCAR decided to put the horse before the cart. We saw a few weeks ago with the NBC's Peacock-only game, fans were pissed. Fans were pissed, and quite frankly, justifiably so. Because there are many fans who pay for NFL-created streaming platforms, and they couldn't even watch it through those platforms. What did this accomplish? Nothing. It just pissed off the fans for no good reason. This is what's going to happen for NASCAR. As I've said before, NASCAR should focus on what they have instead of what they want. They've shit the bed with this new deal. Fans are irate, and justifiably so. And if you want to know why, let me explain this to you simply. At the time of production, Amazon Prime Video membership is $8.99 a month. With a 5-race package, you were paying anywhere from $8.99 to $7.98 to watch 5 races, which amounts to about $3.60 per race. If it's you're paying the $17.98. And since many TV sets, even the newer ones, aren't automatically of the smart variety, and some cable services don't offer certain apps with certain packages, this is going to limit how many fans are going to watch. And again, in addition to the NFL, this streaming-only tactic has been tried with the Honda Indy Toronto in IndyCar. The viewership numbers were so low, Peacock was too embarrassed to release them. Let me repeat that. The number of viewers was so bad, neither IndyCar or Peacock could justify releasing them. Let that sink in. Go ahead. I'll wait. Now, with that, I do understand why NASCAR isn't doing a Peacock-only race. It's not just for that reason, though. Peacock is probably going to be on the way out sooner rather than later. And I said earlier this year that based on predictions, I thought Peacock was going to lose about $3 billion in 2023. But the losses are actually $2.8 billion. It's never a good sign when you can look for a positive in losing $200 million less than what you predicted and $800 million more than what you lost last year. Let those numbers roll in your head for a bit. How anybody could possibly justify losing over $6 billion in 3 years, I think it's actually closer to $7 billion, for a service that is more than likely never going to be profitable in an industry where pretty much everybody is, to a certain extent, losing money, is perplexing to me at the very least. How much Peacock can last is questionable. If Peacock didn't have the deal with WWE, they'd be losing a lot more money. So that the WWE deal is the best thing they have for now, and they better hope that it stays where it is. There was a very short period of time where sports streaming was at its peak, but that ship has sailed, it's hit the iceberg, and it's sunk. But again, I said before, NASCAR should have focused on what they have instead of what they want. Yeah, I can tell you that this new deal is going to run off more fans, for the reasons I just stated. But given how they are currently losing fans, it's the worst possible move. And if you want to know why, let me explain. I looked at the ratings. I have all the ratings down for the races in 2022 and 2023. Here's a number for you. Of the 37 Cup Series races that NASCAR broadcast in 2023, only 3 had rating and audience gains above the previous year, and they were all slightly better than last year's. Those 3 races were the Martinsville race on FS1, which was up a .16 rating and 332,000 viewers. There was the 2023 Nashville race on NBC, which is up a .02 rating and 290,000 fans. Excuse me, that was US. Let me say that again. NBC had the Nashville race, and it had a gain of a .02 and 290,000. USA had the Pocono race, which did a .02 and 218,000 fans better. And USA also had the Texas race, which is frankly, Texas is one of the worst tracks in NASCAR. I don't know why it's still on the schedule. That did a .05 rating and 92,000 viewers better. Now, the Chicago Street Race did a great number with a 2.52 rating and 4,632,000 viewers, but I don't anticipate that that's going to be the case next year. I think the novelty is worn off, so to speak. Outside of those 4 events, 33 races in the Cup Series on Fox, FS1, NBC, and USA lost viewership and rating. 33 races of the 37 broadcast lost viewership between last year and this year, and most of the races in 2022 lost viewership from 2021. And you need to understand another factor here is that NASCAR's core base is traditionally lower income blue collar conservatives. They're much more traditional in views, and in addition, might not have the money for a 5-race prime package. I mean, you're already losing, on average, a .64 rating and 1.389 million people for cable races as opposed to broadcast races per yearly. So you're already taking a huge chunk there. Why would you take a risk of alienating more fans? I just don't get it. Is blocking out 5 races for a streaming platform a good thing. At least NASCAR gets credit for their deal with the CW, which we're going to talk about in the next segment. And I also like that the Truck Series is back on FS1, but again, they need a new lead announcer. The bottom line here is the mid-season package is the worst thing that they could have done with this TV package. I don't see this working out. I have a feeling viewers are going to leave. It's going to run off fans. It's not a good look at all. I'm sorry, it just isn't. And I'm also sick of those within the various broadcast partners praising this. Like, I to a certain degree, get the idea of towing the party line. But it just gets to be a point where everyone else is saying awful things and you're just there like, hey, this is the best broadcasting deal NASCAR's ever had. Shut up. Read the room. I'm angry about this because I love NASCAR. I love stock car racing. I don't want to watch my favorite sport die. And it's killing themselves slowly, and I'm just furious. Okay, we're going to take my first break. I'm going to calm down, and then I'm going to discuss the CW because some things have happened with that since last we talked that are just crazy. I'll be right back. Welcome back. I mentioned the CW in my previous segment, and I have to discuss the CW for this segment. Now, I said that the CW appears to be shaping up as a sports powerhouse with a certain golf league that shall not be mentioned, the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and then it was announced while I was on sabbatical that WWE NXT would be moving to the CW in October. It's basically the same broadcast deal for the Xfinity Series and WWE NXT, or simply NXT. WWE will produce NXT in-house, the CW will air it live, and this starts again in 2024, and this is a 5-year deal, it should be noted. It should also be noted that this is not the first time WWE and CW have done business, since WWE SmackDown was aired on Friday nights between September 22nd, 2006 to September 26, 2008. But how we got here is a fascinating story. Because this is one of those things where if you write it as fiction, nobody would believe it. But because it's real life, it really does work this way. So it starts with our old friends Tony Khan and AEW. Now AEW has a broadcast deal with Warner Brothers Discovery that ends at the end of 2024. But given events that will be discussed in the next segment, Warner Bros. Discovery doesn't appear too thrilled to re-sign AEW. So AEW and the CW had meetings specifically about Ring of Honor. According to the King of Cocaine himself, quote, as far as the Ring of Honor TV rights, we've had a lot of interested parties. It's definitely something I've been holding on to and haven't had a lot of detailed conversations. I think CW was a great network, and we did have a visit. Dennis visited us at the Forum last year, and it was great. I have a lot of respect for Dennis and the CW folks. The timing for us wasn't necessarily right, but there was a lot of great interested people in the marketplace at both AEW and Ring of Honor. For 2023, it will be a really exciting time for pro wrestling, and Ring of Honor added good value going forward. By the way, whenever you listen to Tony Khan speak, just count how many times he says the word great, because he said it 3 times in these sentences. So, with AEW now officially out of the question, who did the CW tap next? The National Wrestling Alliance. Now, for those of you who don't know your wrestling history, the National Wrestling Alliance, or NWA, was the equivalent of the FIA or FIFA or FIBA for American Territorial Wrestling from 1948 to 2012. In 2012, the NWA switched to their own traditional wrestling program with their own superstars and blah, blah, blah. in 2017, Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins acquired the NWA and has run the promotion ever since. In October, it seemed like there was a TV deal between the CW and the National Wrestling Alliance. And then NWA Samhain happened. So, this is a story that if you wrote this as fiction, no one would believe it. So NWA Samhain was a pay-per-view from Temple Live at Cleveland Masonic in Cleveland, Ohio. It was a rather unremarkable event, and from what I've been able to determine, you had 252 people buy the pay-per-view. Not 252,000, 252. Which makes this even better. The event, again, was unremarkable, except for a very, very brief segment where a manager by the name of Father James Mitchell and a number of wrestlers were on camera snorting cocaine as part of a stint. Now, obviously, this was just a skit. None of the white powder was actually a real narcotic. But man, oh man, this did not stop fans from letting the CW know exactly what happened. Well, shockingly, as it turns out, TV networks care a lot about what their partners and what their programs are doing. I mean, you've got actors getting fired in recent years over years, sometimes decades-long incidents or even allegations. So when the NWA allowed cocaine to be sniffed on the air, the CW said, "No TV deal for you," and the deal went kaput. That was my soup Nazi impression. Please don't get mad at me. So, not only did this kill off a deal for NWA on CW, it also ended up killing some other programming because apparently Billy Corgan had some reality shows scripted that were also going to be picked up by the CW. Now, the two best options were off the table at this point, but the CW, realizing that there was a potential TV deal in the works, went to WWE and struck up a deal for NXT. Now, for those of you who, I don't know if I mentioned this, I'll just mention it again if I did. WWE has three main programs: WWE Raw on Mondays, WWE SmackDown on Fridays. These are what are considered the main roster. WWE NXT is the upper echelon of their developmental program, and it's almost always stocked with those wrestlers who are very good on the indies, and even some who are homegrown from WWE. It's actually considered to be some of the best thing WWE does. So the ink is now officially dry. The deal has been announced. And since WWE knows how to work a network show where the network doesn't have to worry about getting in trouble with the FCC or offending viewers, this is going to be fun. AEW and the NWA, they don't have anyone to blame but themselves. They lost a potentially very lucrative deal, and they got no one to blame but themselves. And well, that's how that works sometimes. Now, I'm going to take another break before we get into the third major story I want to talk about. And yes, we're going to be talking about the CM Punk AEW split. I'll be right back. Now for our final segment, we have to discuss AEW and CM Punk. Now, when we last left this saga, AEW had fired CM Punk for cause, as Tony Khan so eloquently phrased it. Now, I speculated at the time where I thought Punk would go, and I, like so many others, I was convinced that a return to WWE was off the table, and given the history between the two parties, everyone agreed. Everyone thought that it was over for CM Punk, and then Survivor Series War Games happened. and the 2023 edition of Survivor Series War Games was a great event from start to finish. There were only 2 championship matches, one for the Intercontinental Champion and the other for the Women's World Championship. It was still a great event. The main event was a War Games match, and to explain what that is using Wikipedia, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes created War Games after watching Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. It debuted at Jim Crockett Promotions' Great American Bash 87 tour. Though originally a specialty match for the Four Horsemen, it proved so popular that it became a regular match. This carried over to WCW, NXT, and eventually WWE, with changes made at times. Now, the WWE incarnation of the War Games match consists of 2 to 3 teams with between 3 and 5 participants facing each other in what's known as a staggered entry format. Traditionally, there was one babyface team and one heel team in each match. In the WWE, the setup of the cage consists of 2 rings side by side, with some diamond plating between the 2 rings and a ring encompassing rectangular cage that covered both rings but not the ringside area. There is a singular door placed to the left side facing the hard camera. Now the match begins with 1 member of each team entering the cage, with the rest of the participants gathered in separate cages at the top of the entrance ramp. Every 5 minutes, a member from one of the teams would exit the shark cage and enter the wrestling cage, giving their team a temporary 2-on-1 handicap advantage. After 2 minutes, a member from the other team would even the odds for the next 2 minutes. Entrants would alternate between teams every 2 minutes until all 5 participants were in the ring. The first person to score a pinfall or submission wins, and if one member of the team escapes the cage, then the whole team is disqualified. And I should also mention, the WWE incarnation didn't have a roof on top of the cage, whereas in previous versions they did. So at the 2003 Survivor Series War Games, the babyface consisted of the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, son of Dusty Rhodes, Seth freaking Rollins, main event Jey Uso, the Viper Randy Orton, and Sami Zayn. Hype was really up for Randy Orton, who had been gone for 18 months with real-life injuries that almost ended his career. The heel team consisted of Damian Priest, Finn Balor, Dirty Dominic Mysterio, and JD McDonough of a group called the Judgment Day, and Drew McIntyre. The match was good, and after 34 minutes and 50 seconds, the babyface team of Rhodes, Rollins, Uso, Orton, and Zayn won. The teams were celebrating in the ring. WWE put up the final graphic. The fans were happy, and all was well. And then CM Punk's music hits. In a seismic shock to everyone in the arena, everyone watching at home, everyone on social media, and every wrestling journalist, Punk's music hit, and CM Punk walked into a WWE arena for the first time in almost a full decade. The crowd erupted. Social media went into a frenzy, and the whole event went mega viral. According to WWE, in the days after the event, it was viewed 71 million times across all of their social media platforms combined. No one could believe it initially, and with good reason. In 2014, Punk and WWE parted ways on awful terms, and they both had a huge dislike of each other. Even with certain things happening, nobody thought that the bridge could be rebuilt between the two, but rebuilt it was. Now, granted, Punk had been backstage at a WWE event under AEW contract, but even still, it seemed like an actual contract deal was possible. But with Endeavor now running WWE and Vince McMahon a mere figurehead, hell froze over. And this, to me, proves 2 things. Now, the first one is something we've known for a long time. WWE can and will rebuild bridges when they can make lots of money. Believe me, this is not the only incident. There are many, many others. And ironically, with a lot of dismay towards Vince McMahon in this day and age, this mindset worked. Remember, Vince McMahon rebuilt bridges with, amongst others, the Ultimate Warrior, Eric Bischoff, Bret Hart, and Jeff Jarrett. That's just naming a few. But the other thing that's become transparently clear, is how badly AEW is being run. And I'm not the first or only person to say this. At this point, AEW is basically a log floating down a river covered in ants. Each ant thinks they're guiding the log, but nobody actually is. And Tony Khan is a truly feckless owner who has no idea what he's doing as a booker or a promoter. All of the problems that caused the rift between CM Punk and AEW could have been and should have been quashed by Tony Khan a long time ago. Now, Punk was having issues with the Elite and their camp. The Elite consisting of Kenny Omega, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, who are all EVPs, Hangman Adam Page, Brandon Cutler, and Michael Nakazawa. To paraphrase a various group of things from Punk himself to Wrestling with Regret, Punk was not there to make friends. He was there to make money. He wanted to help train the younger wrestlers and become better. This rubbed the wrong way and he had to go. What Tony Khan had to do, all Tony Khan had to do, was to sit the Elite and CM Punk down, show them how much money all involved would have made with Punk being there, and that you're going to have to deal with it for the best nature of the company, and that would have been the end of it. Yeah, the Bucks and Omega have a lot of power in terms of being in AEW, but AEW was still owned by Tony Khan. That whole sequence of events that I just said never happened. And it should have happened, but it never happened. Tony Khan is the perfect example. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. Tony Khan is the perfect example of why the nice guy shouldn't be in charge. Sure, the nice guy has got the bowl of candy and the smiley face button on his cubicle wall and the super positive attitude. But at the same time, when shit hits the fan, he's hiding under his desk or hiding in the bathroom. You need a strong leader to charge in when shit hits the fan and deal with the situation. Tony Khan simply isn't that guy. And he just screwed himself over big time. Big time. And you know what? When AEW fired Punk after All Out, it was transparently clear from the moment it happened that the only reason this happened was because various influential entities within AEW wanted him gone. And the amazing thing is, all of the entities that screwed Punk as well as AEW are still in the company to some degree. Punk was the odd man out, so he had to go. The Elite won, but at what costs? Realistically, a man who could have brought millions of dollars and millions of fans to AEW works for a company he despised for almost a decade. And that should tell you everything you need to know. Tony Khan is so awful as a wrestler, as a wrestling booker and a promoter, that he helped CM Punk and WWE mend fences. CM Punk and WWE are back together for the first time in a decade because of Tony Khan's incompetence. Figure that one out. How amazing is that? And I mentioned previously that Warner Bros. Discovery is not so hot on AEW, and Punk is a big reason for that. You need to remember that before all of this went down, Warner Bros. Discovery gave AEW the show Collision, which was a Saturday night show that was pretty much based around Punk, where Punk could work with the guys he wanted to because Warner Bros. Discovery knew that Punk was a draw. And you know what? What that basically meant was everybody, with the exception of the Elite and Chris Jericho and maybe a few others, would be on Collision. You know, AEW could have had the Elite on Dynamite and Punk on Collision, and everybody could have worked out. It could have made everybody happy, made everybody a lot of money, but they didn't do it. Now Punk's gone. He ain't coming back, that's for damn sure. The obvious question is, much longer can AEW Collision last? In fact, how much longer is AEW going to be on Warner Bros. Discovery? If you've been seeing their ratings, they've been going down and down and down consistently. And there are some segments were as many as 200,000 viewers left during single segments. Think about that. AEW can't last much longer on Warner Bros. Discovery, and the contract's up at the end of 2024. There's going to be a scramble. That's for damn sure. Tony Khan has nobody to blame but himself right now. Nobody to blame but himself. He had the hottest act in wrestling handed to him. And because he's listening to the wrong people, he's gone and never come back. He was at one point in time a major competition to WWE, and now WWE has all the cards that Khan needed for AEW to succeed. He shit the bed at this point. His downfall is ongoing. It's only a matter of time before AEW suffers the same fate as WCW did in 2001. It's not a bold prediction, by the way. I've seen how these guys are going. It's not going to end well. And AEW and Tony Khan have nobody to blame but themselves. With that, let me try it. I'm so flustered right now. With that, Driver's Tooth Blog Radio episode 102 comes to an end. Episode 103 will catch up on the minor racing news stories, but I wanted to get the first big stories out for the first episode of the new year. I'm Dave Firestone. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next Friday.